Good Sunday morning, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for May the 7th. Today we're reading together, finishing up actually, the book of Numbers as we're reading together in Numbers chapter 36. A little short chapter. Really, it's a follow-up to a previous text that we have looked at that is going to further answer some questions that the previous instruction left unanswered. And that's something we've seen a number of times as we've looked through the text of Numbers, is that there's been instruction given, but then there needs to be some further clarification that, we know you said this, but what if this other variable comes into play? What should we do then? Which is a good thing, because I believe it shows the desire to do things according to the will of God. So let's read here together in Numbers 36, and we'll have just a couple of concluding thoughts to wrap up our read through Numbers. And remember, we have a day off tomorrow, and then we'll be starting in Deuteronomy on Tuesday. Let me get the text of Numbers up on the screen for us and read along together. Numbers 36 and verse number 1. The family heads from the clan of the descendants of Gilead, the son of Machir, son of Manasseh, who were from the clans of the sons of Joseph, approached and addressed Moses and the leaders who were heads of the Israelite families. They said, Yahweh commanded my Lord to give the land as an inheritance by lot to the Israelites. My Lord was further commanded by Yahweh to give our brother Zelophehad's inheritance to his daughters. Remember, Zelophehad, that's going back here. Let me see if I can find that very, very, very quickly. Zelophehad and his daughters are mentioned in, I think we're in chapter 25, 26. See, I said I was going to try to do this quickly, and I'm not doing it quickly. Let's see here. There we go. Chapter 26 and verse number 33, we read about Zelophehad, who had no sons. So there's a question that was asked concerning these women, and now there's a further question. So we read about that in verse number 2, that my Lord was further commanded by Yahweh to give our brother Zelophehad's inheritance to his daughters. If they marry any of the men from the other Israelite tribes, their inheritance will be taken away from our father's inheritance and added to that of the tribe into which they marry. Therefore, part of our allotted inheritance would be taken away. Verse 4, when the Jubilee comes for the Israelites, their inheritance will be added to that of the tribe into which they marry, and their inheritance will be taken away from the inheritance of our ancestral tribe. So Moses commanded the Israelites at the word of Yahweh. What the tribe of Joseph's descendants says is right. This is what Yahweh has commanded concerning Zelophehad's daughters. They may marry anyone they like, provided they marry within a clan of their ancestral tribe. No inheritance belonging to the Israelites is to transfer from tribe to tribe, because each of the Israelites is to retain the inheritance of his ancestral tribe. Any daughter who possesses an inheritance from an Israelite tribe must marry someone from the clan of her ancestral tribe, so that each of the Israelites will possess the inheritance of his fathers. No inheritance is to transfer from one tribe to another, because each of the Israelite tribes is to retain its inheritance. The daughters of Zelophehad did as Yahweh commanded Moses. Mahlah, Tirzah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Noah, the daughters of Zelophehad, married cousins on their father's side. They married men from the clans of the descendants of Manasseh, son of Joseph, and their inheritance remained within the tribe of their father's clans. These are the commands and ordinances Yahweh commanded the Israelites through Moses in the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho. And that concludes our read through the book of Numbers. All right, so to have some concluding thoughts just on this chapter alone, again, the previous instruction in chapter 26 is concerning this singular family in which the scenario is that the father had no sons. The inheritance will be passed along to the sons, but he has no sons. So what's he to do? Well, he has his daughters, and the inheritance will be passed along to them. Well, then the question becomes, well, what happens if and when they marry a man from a different tribe? Because remember that the allotment of the inheritance was divided up between the tribes according to the size of the tribes. The smaller the tribe, the less land, the bigger the tribe, the more land. So what we're looking for in, I believe it's in chapters 33 and 34, what's mentioned there is we're looking for balance. We don't need the biggest tribes to have lesser lands that cannot support them. So we want to make sure the land is appropriate for the size of the tribe. Well, the issue here is, well, in this scenario, but in basically any scenario, if a woman has an inheritance from her father, and say she's from a smaller tribe, like let's see here. Actually, I can look here. I have a graphic. So say she's from the tribe of Dan. And Dan has a pretty small amount of area. Say she marries someone from the tribe of Judah. Well, if that's the case, then it would be passed on, that inheritance would be passed on to her husband and his family, which means that Dan would lose what little lands there he had. And Judah, which has a great deal of land, would grow even larger. Well, that doesn't make any sense. If you do that, then very quickly these tribes can disappear. So the question is how to address that. Would this be addressed through the Jubilee system, where on the 50th year, the land, specifically the purchased land, would be given back to the original owner? Would that apply here in this situation? And the response from Moses is that no, it would not be applicable to the situation. The way we're going to address this is by making sure that everyone marries within their ancestral tribes, within their families, within their own clans. That way, everything stays within the family. That way, there's no mix-ups, there's no crossing over of tribes, and leading to some tribes being lessened through just straight marriage, and same thing for the land as well. So we're going to avoid this just simply by staying within the family. Marry within your families, marry within your tribes and your ancestral clans, so that the land can stay where it's supposed to be. To the credit of Zelophehad's daughters, the text says they did as Yahweh commanded Moses, that they married cousins on their father's sides. They married within Manasseh. They married within their clans. And that's a statement that I think finishes up this text very well, because a number of times in this second half of Numbers, and sometimes throughout the first half, but specifically in the second half, we've seen a lot of obedience from the people. We saw this a lot in Leviticus as well, actually, where there was a lot of a number of statements of obedience concerning the people, that they did just as Yahweh commanded them to do. And that's a sign of faithfulness. That's a sign of their covenant loyalty. And that's one of the big picture ideas of Numbers, as we've been reading through here, is that it's very simple. If you are loyal to God's covenants, if you are faithful to him, if you trust in him, then you will receive blessings, and everything that he has promised you, you'll get to enjoy. On the other hand, if you don't show loyalty, if you don't trust in Yahweh, like the 10 spies earlier in the book of Numbers, well, then you're going to receive strong curses. That was true in the past, and that continues to remain true right now in the present for them. But we're also going to see that's going to remain true moving forward as well. Again, unfortunately, we know the end of the history of, or at least the lowest point of the history of Israel, and that they go into captivity and they lose the land because of their lack of covenant loyalty to Yahweh. So this just stands as a strong reminder for us as well, that we need to be a strong people who are faithful, who trust God, who are loyal to the covenant that we are in with Christ, so that we can receive the blessings, and so that our numbers will continue to remain high and increase. And we also get to choose, and need to choose, which generation are we going to be like? Are we going to be like the first generation that showed a great deal of unfaithfulness and died in the wilderness? Or are we going to be like this second generation that has shown, at least up to this point, a greater propensity for faithfulness and trust? And for that, they're going to be able to enter into the promised land. Those are choices that we have to make. And I'm excited to continue through our read about the Israelites in Deuteronomy. we're going to have basically a re-emphasizing of the law. It is a second giving of the law, basically, and it's going to prepare the people to enter into the promised land. It's going to be a final warning. It's going to be a final motivation for them that as you enter the land, again, this is Moses speaking to them. Moses himself is not going to enter the land, but he still loves the people enough to give them this series of lessons and teachings. Basically, Moses is preaching in Deuteronomy. He's going to preach to the people because he wants them to succeed. He wants his ancestors who are going to come after him, or he wants his descendants who are going to come after him, to be in a right relationship with their God, and to practice covenant loyalty and to show faithfulness so that the nation can thrive. Because remember, they're still waiting on that great blessing, that third promise, that through them all the nations of the earth would be blessed. They are a great nation, or yes, they are a great nation, and they're about to enter into this great land. But they need to keep these things up so that God's third promise can come true and everyone can be blessed. I'm excited to read through the text of Deuteronomy with you starting on Tuesday. Have a catch-up day tomorrow. So maybe if you're behind a little bit, you can catch up on Monday, or maybe just take a little bit of a breather, and then we'll be back at it again on Tuesday in Deuteronomy chapter 1. I very much appreciate you tuning in for this reading on this Sunday, and I hope that you'll be able to gather with the saints in Loudon or wherever you might be here in a little while. If you're watching this whenever it debuts at 8 o'clock in the morning, here in a little bit, we'll be gathering in Loudon at 10 o'clock for our Bible studies, and then we will be gathering as well for a worship assembly where we're going to sing together, we're going to pray together, observe the supper together, and we're going to study from God's word. Again, we're going to be continuing our year-long series on who we are in Christ, and this month we're going to look at being strangers and exiles, and we're going to talk about that from the perspective of what Paul writes in Philippians chapter 3 about his mindset as a disciple of Jesus, and what that should teach us about what our mindset should be as strangers and exiles. Again, thanks for tuning in on this Sunday morning. Hope you have a great rest of your Lord's Day. May God bless you and all that you do, and I hope I'll see you again on Tuesday morning as we begin our read through Deuteronomy. Take care, and God bless.